Okay, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أما بعد, we express our praise and gratitude to Allah Ta'ala, and we seek blessings upon the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So, once again, to recap exactly where we are, starting from ayah 124, we are beginning this new section. And the focus, essentially, for the next 39, 40 ayahs, is on the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam and family, peace be upon them all, the Prophet, peace be upon him, the Kaaba, and a central theme is going to be the theme of perseverance. Well, obedience and perseverance, I should say. So in last week's discussion, we spoke about Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail, peace be upon them both. They were instructed, first and foremost, Ibrahim alayhi salam was tried by his Lord. Ibtila was the word that was being used. And the point I want to draw our attention to is that bala essentially means to be hit with a test. Ibtila is to hit with a big test. And the word bala was used for the slavery of the children of Israel. Whereas ibtila is being used for what Ibrahim alayhi salam was hit with. And Ibrahim alayhi salam's issue was obedience. And the point being that the obedience that he was hit with, or charged with, obedience of Allah Ta'ala that he had to fulfill, was a very, very intensely difficult thing. And he fulfilled it all. And so from there we're saying that, to emphasize that there are three types of tests. Any given moment you're going to be hit with one or more of these three tests. Again, suffering or difficulty, ease or prosperity, and obedience. This third one is obedience. So the way to pass the test of obedience is to obey. Simple enough. Of course, shaitan is constantly hitting you, trying to give you reasons not to obey. Whether it's to procrastinate or figure out a reason why it doesn't apply, or something else. From there, we looked at the story of Ibrahim and Ismail being told to raise or re-raise the Kaaba as a place of worship. And think about this from the perspective that, all right, the entire world, as we know, is a place of worship, right? Is a masjid. So what is essentially the function, the initial function of the Kaaba is, okay, this is a place that's only used for worship, right? So everything around us for the next 50 trillion miles is a place of worship, but it might also be used for something else. A house, a business, whereas a masjid is only to be used as a place of worship, so the Kaaba is that. So if there were only 2 or 5 Muslims in the world, they would be praying inside the Kaaba, right? When you have a billion, then it's not as easy. Have any of you been inside? Have we talked about this? There's a YouTube video where they go inside the Kaaba, and it's cool to see, but it's also remarkably plain. My father, alhamdulillah, when he went on Hajj, he had a pass to go inside.
Wow.
So dignitaries and everything, but essentially it's a big empty room. Yeah.
When was that?
He went in '98.
And that's not too long ago.
Do people pray inside the Kaaba? They can.
So my mom, who was someone who, I mean, I think he's still there. He was someone who at the time had been living there for like 30 years, so he was connected. And
Connections.
yeah, and I went the next year, and I was supposed to get a pass, and it's probably for the better that it didn't work out because I was an angry man at that time, so I probably would have been very unhappy in the holiest spot of the entire planet with all these big wigs while the poor people are on the outside. Yeah. So youth is an old age whose cure is, or madness. Youth is a madness whose cure is old age. Yes.
I was going to say the Haram is now, the renovation is supposed to allow 10,000 worshippers.
What million?
But
10 million?
yeah, it's probably 10 million.
10,000
I think the
will
courtyard
fit in.
itself is at least 10,000.
Yeah, 10 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. A bunch of zeros. Can you really tell me?
Never more than the magnitude of.
I thought the courtyard
The
was.
sad part is like, no, she said that with such. It's gonna allow for 10 people.
It's like $1 million. Sorry, we're having a laugh at yours.
I'm sorry.
like it.
The construction attracts people,
Oh, that's probably true.
but you know.
Yeah.
The scale is just out of control.
Logistics. You have the Tower of Sauron. That's what Nilüfer calls
When
it.
you're there, you look at the Kaaba, and it looks like this little teeny tiny box. You know,
And
it's
there's like a
us
mall.
working.
And then like the Sears Tower is right in front of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
It's taller than the Sears Tower. It's
Really?
crazy.
So,
It's 1,500 feet.
the clock
Clock tower.
Tower.
The one
I just imagine like at some point.
Casey's. It's right,
So-
right outside. It's right
Oh,
next to
I couldn't get over the fact that when we got there for Hajj, we actually, for Umrah, we had to go through that mall to get to the Kaaba.
Yeah.
And like people
Oh, that-
are
that
wearing
should-
their
It's like
ihram,
merchandising
and
and
they're,
like
around,
Disney
like,
World.
You're saying labbaik and you're walking through this
Wow.
mall
Like,
to get to
babe,
the
hold on,
Kaaba.
whoa.
There
Hey,
literally is
making
no
notes.
way. There literally is no way to get from your room to the
No, there's
to the
door.
Haram
Without going.
You
without
have to
going
go
through the mall.
Wow.
Unless you know.
If you say it really fast.
Really?
Wait.
That
Well,
was
is
one
the
of those-
final plan? Is the final plan, I think, is the full circular prayer space and then skyscrapers all around. Isn't it? I think that's the final plan.
Connected through
They're
that
moving
mall.
boundaries.
And then also like the upper
Like,
floors.
you know, there's
the
like-
extra.
Yeah, there's
floors.
like that
It's
whole
all
thing
connected.
connected.
Okay, where it's like level, so you can, no matter where you are, you
You
can
can see the
That
Kaaba.
would actually be pretty cool. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
1 mile away.
So, okay, but in any case, Ibrahim and Ismail, alayhim as-salam, were charged with rebuilding the Kaaba. And then they made these prayers to Allah Ta'ala about it. And the key one that I want to draw our attention to is number one, or the key two, is that they make this dua, رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ, which is a good dua for every one of us to memorize if we have not already. Ayah 127. And then how fascinating it is that
128, isn't it? Or no?
127 again. I mean, it's a whole series of duas, 127, 128, 129. That they make this prayer for a messenger to be risen, and it took these two who are among the most pious men in the whole history of the world. It took their prayer 3,000 years, give or take, 4,000 years to manifest into the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So that could speak of the greatness of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Bringing us to Ayah 130. وَمَنْ يَرْغَبُ عن ملة إبراهيم إلا من سفه نفسه. There's this poetic rhythm in the Arabic that, of course, the way I recite it gets lost. But so, who is it who would give up, who would be repulsed by the millah of Ibrahim, except for someone who is making a fool of himself? Now, first thing I want to draw your attention to is the title Millat Ibrahim. Millat Ibrahima. So the Millah of Ibrahim, the path of Ibrahim, the way of Ibrahim, this is another name for Islam. We've already seen, or no, we're going to see some more names of Islam here. So when we think of Islam, the common name we use, of course, is Islam. Another name is the Millat of Ibrahim. Yeah. Another name is Ummat Wasat. So the balance or the just. Yeah, Ummatun Wasatun. Or the balance or the just, or the best nation. Another name for Islam is Din al-Fitra. So the deen of your fitra. Now what I want to draw your attention to is the fact that we have multiple names for our deen, just like we have multiple names for the Quran, Al-Quran, Al-Furqan, Nur, Huda, Dhikr, all these things, also gives you a type of flexibility. Okay? That if you get a chance, if you haven't read it already, read Dr. Omer's article, Omer Farooq Abdullah's article. It's Sikh Knowledge in China. And he talks about the early history of Islam in China. And the point he's making is as a lesson for Muslims here, as we're understanding and developing our Islam here, China was a non-Abrahamic environment. Here it's fair to say that the majority of the population has some Abrahamic connection to Christianity, whether or not they're practicing or not, right? There it's a non-Abrahamic environment. How did they develop Islam? Leading into the fact that even through to today, they're hardcore Hanafis, right? And for most of the history of Islam in China, it was never called Islam, right? And the title was The Path of Two Returns. For most of the history, so Islam arrives in China less than a century after the death of the Prophet. That's how soon it arrives. Right? And what was their argument? That in China they looked at, okay, they have this Chinese philosophy that is looking at the consequence of your actions. So you have the return on your actions, right? Every action has an equal opposite reaction. So they were saying our system is a path of two returns. What you do has a consequence in this world, and what you do has a consequence in the next world.
But was it proper Islam?
It was 100% textbook Islam. Yeah.
What was the name of the book?
It's a short article. It's Sikh Knowledge in China. If you just search for it, you can probably find a PDF.
Who wrote that?
Dr. Omer.
Well, what was the purpose of not calling it Islam?
Because Islam, they wanted to make it something that was completely indigenous, right? America's an interesting place because the English language absorbs all the new words, right? Think of like, you know, taco, pizza. I don't know why I maybe went to food, but the point is that so Islam is already here, yeah. So we don't have to call it like the true Christianity or anything like that, right?
So the path of true return, where's the true return?
So the idea being that all your actions have consequence.
Oh, okay. I see.
One consequence is in what we would call dunya, and one consequence is in akhirah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And so they had a presence, and this is not the Uyghurs that we're often hearing about in the news, right? That's a different group, in terms of Western China.
The reworks?
Uighurs.
Did you see the reworks?
The reworks.
Wait, so what group is this talking about?
So this is the Hui tribe, right? So there's like, apparently the two big tribes, or two of the big tribes in China are the Han tribe. Yeah, I don't know as much, this is more just putting things together. And the Wei tribe, but it's actually spelled Hui. And a descendant of this, apparently, is Connie Chung, for those of us who are older. Yeah. You guys know who Connie Chung is? Exactly. Oh, you know who, I know who you know. You know Maury Povich. You know.
No,
You are not the father, or his wife.
It was,
They're married?
Yeah.
Yeah.
what?
Did you ever hear that? Yeah.
I,
It's the oddest looking
I
couple.
kind of know it.
It's the oddest.
She's like on Arthur.
She used to be a news journalist type thing.
She was like a
CBS.
serious journalist.
She was on
like
Full
a
House.
junkie
There you
journalist,
go.
a junkie
She's an
journalist,
actress.
and then I got married.
That's how I
Oh,
know.
like on an episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I knew who Arthur Ashe was. Like, you know, I remember people were talking about Arthur Ashe. Yeah, he was on Sesame Street.
Yeah, like, or they like referenced her or something, I don't know.
Yeah, they probably did. They probably did. Yeah,
I feel like she was on Arthur too. That's why.
she probably was.
I never liked Arthur.
Here we got it, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, the next generation.
I still
Yes. Oh yes, I know that. I know who Albert Einstein is. They talked about him on Clifford the Big Red Dog. Yeah. So,
Oh man.
so the point here is that when we're speaking of Islam in these different ways, at one level we have different lenses through which to understand Islam. And so one is Islam itself, the idea of submission. Another is the path of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So our sunnah, which is the sunnah of the Prophet, peace be upon him, you can trace as the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Even in Surah Al-Hajj, it actually says that he's the one who came up with the name Muslim. That's traced back to him. Well, Ibrahim alayhi salam.
Shit. Stuff in a lot. Man.
Are you want water?
Just had a bad day.
No, this is for him because he's crying.
I just had a.
smell like
rough-
Oh, sorry, what did you say? Which surah ayah?
Surah Al-Hajj, I don't remember exactly where it is. I think it's near the end. You can probably look it up really quickly while the coffee's in.
That's it. Thank you.
Soak it up right away. Okay.
That's right, you're tearing down your house. Another
Just destroy it. That's okay.
Yes, say.
Yeah.
No,
Oh, it's actually last ayah, 78. Correction. It says here, Allah Ta'ala named you.
in Surah Hajj,
Surah Hajj, last ayah.
it doesn't say he coined the term Muslim.
So, وَجَاهَدُ فِي حَقًّا جِهَادِهِ وَاجْتَنَبَهُ مِلَّةِ أَبِيكُمْ إِبْرَاهِيمَ هُوَ سَمَّاكُمُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Oh, okay. This translation is saying Allah named you. But you can read this as Ibrahim named you Muslimin. So it says basically follow the millah of your father Ibrahim. So millata abikum Ibrahim. Huwa, he, sammakum, that's working. Who he named you al-Muslimina.
Isn't it like isn't it like here?
He called you.
Yeah.
Called.
So Malcolm.
Yes, sir.
After I'm learning about like the life of Prophet Muhammad, and they always talk about the religion of our forefathers, which is obviously worshiping idols, right? I always think that the forefathers were like Ibrahim alayhi
Just
salam.
put it down.
Yeah, that's true. So in terms of speaking of that, it'd be the forefathers' forefathers. Meaning what you're saying is actually a correct illustration of the flaw in the reasoning.
Did you say last ayah?
Last night, I 78. So, because they're saying to the Prophet, we're going to follow what our forefathers followed, right? And your point is correct. The real forefather was Ibrahim alayhi salam. So what they should be doing is following the Prophet, peace be upon him.
Surah Hajj, you said, right?
Surah Al-Hajj, Surah 22.
I was looking at Surah Ibrahim. Okay.
So the point is to think about each of these titles is a lens through which to have an understanding of what Islam is, and here the lens is that Islam is the path of Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? So we have essentially, so Ibrahim alayhi salam is our prophet more than the prophet of the previous people. Now this gets interesting, and we're going to see this later on. That in Judaism, how is Ibrahim alayhi salam identified? He's called a patriarch. And in their perspective, he's a Hebrew prophet. He's a Jewish prophet. And what is the problem with that? He's coming before Judaism. He can't be a Jewish prophet if Judaism wasn't around. It would be like saying Jesus is a Christian, right? At no point in history is Jesus a Christian. If anything, you can say in their tradition he's Jewish. Christianity comes later, right? So a small point. And I'm making this point because this is something that people take issue with when we're claiming he's Muslim. Because the argument is that, well, Muhammad didn't come until thousands of years later, right?
Wasn't being a Jew like the most recent form of Islam back then anyway?
I mean, we would kind of say that, right? But it's the key point being, and one of the points actually it's good that you mentioned that we brought up last time, is that in that tradition there was an idea that there was something special about you with Allah because of your lineage, right? And we're saying it comes down to your actions, your belief in your actions. Yeah. So meaning I could be the child of the most pious person in the world, and that won't help me in my akhirah. You know what I'm saying? I could be myself the most pious person in the world, but that doesn't help my child one bit. Except maybe for the du'as I make for my child. I mean, my child has to earn his or her own akhirah. Okay. Yeah.
So where does the tradition that we've developed of this lineage of the prophets of Allah, which I'm not trying to disregard it, but it seems to be inconsistent with what you just stated.
In terms of salvation, it's inconsistent. In terms of esteem, there are narrations where the Prophet, peace be upon him, says, do not abuse my family. And there's even a narration, the khutbah he does at Hajj, that follow two things, the kitab and my sunnah, and you'll never go straight. There's even a narration which I think is a minority narration, follow the kitab and my family, and you'll never go astray, right? So in terms of the adab of interacting with people, there is a special attention given for the family of the Prophet, peace be upon him, which does nothing for their salvation. See what I'm saying? But in terms of just this world type thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I deliberately chose, much to the chagrin of some of my, maybe not so much my parents, but the sort of peripheral generations, I chose to drop Sayyid from Suleiman's name.
Yeah.
Deliberately.
Yeah.
And
my father dropped Muhammad for my name.
For the same reason. And the reason being that I said that Hassan wasn't Sayyid Hassan Ali, Hussein wasn't Sayyid Hussein Ali. We can have the name, the lineage has no special significance other than maybe it should make you a little more humble about your position, but that's not the way
Just gonna slam it.
That was an painful cry.
Yes.
Yeah. That sounded like me. It's like when I don't get a Cheetos.
Yeah, so it made, the way it's used nowadays is not meant to convey a sense of humility, but it's rather used to convey a sense of privilege.
Especially, when we go to the subcontinent, it's time to find marriages. You say it? Sorry. You're the trash. Right, yeah, but there is something, serious about it too, though, right? As a privilege that you have to be grateful for if you're a part of it, right? So there's Sayyid, which is essentially referring to people who are descendants of Hussein, radiallahu anh. There's Sharif, people who are descendants of Hassan, right? And so I had a student who is both a Sayyid and a Sharif. And they were taught growing up to take it as something very serious. It was the privilege that you have.
Wait,
right?
what's Sayyid and Sharif?
So Sayyid is essentially a person who is, at least theoretically, they can trace themselves back to the Prophet, peace be upon him, through the grandson Hussein. The title Sharif is someone who can trace themselves back to the Prophet's grandson Hassan, right? So the Prophet has one surviving child, Fatima. She marries Ali, and through them two, they have 2 children. Ali has other children later on, so Hassan and Hussein, right? And so I mean, he was taught that this is something you have to take very seriously. You have to uphold a type of conduct, even, right? But yeah, in many of our communities, it becomes a status symbol, which I think is completely misused. I mean, Dr. Omer has a funny story that, like, when he took his shahada, I hope I'm not messing up the story, but one of the people who was sort of instructing him was a sharif, but he had no problem boozing it up, and this is Dr. Omer's introduction to Islam.
Wait, did he know about like Sayyid?
He didn't know what any of those things meant at the time. Yeah. So, I don't know if there is anything beyond that, but meaning, so I've seen both types of people. Those people who've been told this is something serious you have to honor, and then those people for you're better than everybody else. But yeah, like my parents never told me if or that were Sayyids. I had a cousin who told me. I've never even asked my folks, so I don't even know if we really are. But my father consciously didn't name me Muhammad. Everybody else is Muhammad Omer Mozaffar, Muhammad this Mozaffar, Muhammad that Mozaffar. Yeah, because that's his friend here. Yeah. And I mean, I never even thought to ask my folks. Maybe I should ask them to really shut up, go away, you know. Not like you, Arnik. So again, the point being that these are different lenses through which we understand the deen, but this also opens up the concept that if you were to try to develop in Islam in a new community, you want to figure out a way to make it most natural, right? So this is where Dr. Omer really did a lot of research on, that even in the history of Islam in different regions in Africa, the terms they use for hell, for heaven, they use terms that were very, very indigenous terms. Like in the subcontinent, we use Khuda, right? Khuda coming from Farsi. Etymologically, Khuda and God, those 2 words are related. But what does Khuda mean literally? The one before whom there was none, right? But it takes a lot of deliberation, you know, figuring out what is the proper term if you're speaking especially about Allah Ta'ala, right? Or terms like Barbardigar. Right? You know.
One question. So, like, does that translate into things like dress and, like, even, like, the way you talk, too?
Yep.
So, like, if you're, like, say, like, you want to wear modest clothing, but you don't think that an abaya or something is, like, necessary because it's not, like, indigenous or normal to you. Like,
That would be part of the liberation, yeah. Meaning, so think of it a few ways. Matters of ibadah are almost out of the question for adjusting, right? You pray the same way every way, right? Every place. Matters of what are called mu'amalat, so social interaction, is a negotiation between what is the Prophet's sunnah, peace be upon him, as far as we can gather, and what you do as your normal practice in a particular society. So dress is exactly one example of that.
But, like, could you also extend that to, like, what's modest in this society is different from what might have been modest in, like, the Prophet's?
As long as it's not violating haram, yeah, absolutely.
So, like, say, like, okay, like, could someone even say, like, okay, covering your hair is not, like, necessary to modesty here, so you might need to cover your
So that would get into obligation. So that would, in terms of covering hair, that would be an obligation thing. How you cover your hair would be a different issue. Because the text doesn't say where or how much, right? So you can make the argument, you know, like there's always a running joke about, I shouldn't use her name anymore, you know, so may Allah have mercy on her, but Benazir Bhutto, the hijab, right? You know, the slides back, pull it forward, slides back, right? That might be technically legit. Yes, sir?
You always hear people, like, at school and whatnot, saying, like, I have a cousin who has cancer or this and that. But you never hear any Muslims saying that, so I'm thinking, like, there's all this, like, I never hear stories about, like, too often about people saying, like, oh, my cousin has, like, some disease.
That's interesting, because I've had a lot of cousins who have cancer, so maybe I've never told anybody, you know. I don't even know, you know.
I
don't even know if any of them actually died from cancer, now that I think of it.
It's okay.
We have to encourage the betas. Yeah. but I didn't see how that relates to what we're talking about. That's something on the lost.
It's okay.
I used to think Muslims didn't have germs, so it's all good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I was little.
You know, that's interesting because most of the people in our society believe we have a lot of germs. Like the killing gene. Anyway, so.
What?
There it is. Okay, so these are just some things that I want you to think about as we're even imagining Islam. Right, before I made the point that usually when we imagine Islam, we almost imagine it the way many people imagine the Catholic Church, which is a set of rules upon rules and dogma, this and that. And I suggested the point before that when you imagine Islam, think of it the way we in our society imagine something like the Tao, Taoism, where we think of it as an actual way of life, which is what we keep saying Islam is, right? So it relates to a whole way of thinking and conducting yourself that is informed through the Prophet, peace be upon him. Likewise, this applies to even what we call our deen. So the Millah of Ibrahim. So whoever would be repulsed by it is a fool. Yeah, I think this is interesting language. Or is fooling himself. Safiha nafsahu. Why? Sorry, I should have looked out.
Sounds like it's like,
Yeah. Why would someone be foolish to turn away from the Millah of Ibrahim? What do you think?
I'm just thinking about like the way Ibrahim alayhi salam found Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, or how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals himself to Ibrahim alayhi salam. Like, I think it's that whole like self-evident like reflection and finding the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and like the everyday things. So I think like to reject it, to repulse it is you are fooling yourself to you're covering yeah. I think that might be part of it.
Yeah, I think so.
I once read this book, and it said that
Muslims never have cancer or anything like that.
like humans, usually they fool themselves when they think. Like it was obviously a book about magic, but like there's magic, and it said that humans always think to themselves that this is like an illusion and it's not real. So maybe that's what they thought when Ibrahim alayhi salam was doing stuff.
Interesting.
Like that.
Yeah, it could be. And even think back to. Yeah, mashallah.
redoing themselves.
That was profound. You should be proud of him as your beta. So even think back to that lesson we had a couple classes ago, like when we talked about how many people are looking for a miracle and a sign. And what do? You close your mind to the trillions of miraculous things that are right in front of you, right? Because they're just always present, so we don't even think about it. Often we think of the miracle as a less than a trillion possibility. But
the guy who was talking.
yeah, so as soon as Neil Armstrong's autobiography came out, that's the thing I looked up, right? And he has 2 pages of this.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And he says everywhere he ever went to sign autographs, someone would come to him and ask him, "Did you hear the Muslim call to prayer when you're in space?" And every time he'd say, "No, I didn't." And then almost every time someone would say, "The CIA told you not to tell me." You really did.
That's in his book?
Autobiography.
That's hilarious.
Right?
That's so
I was like,
funny.
oh man, I think I probably covered my eyes and walked away.
That's funny.
Yeah.
It's so embarrassing.
That'd be cool if it turned out to be true. But, yeah.
Look left if it's yes.
Yeah. So okay, so I was thinking about this, right? And then what is that saying? That Allah Ta'ala could not put the moon back together properly, so the crack is still there?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I said to him, I said, what if 100 years from now, right, we go back to the moon, geologists find out that this crack in the moon happened 20 million years ago or something.
Yeah. Well,
It's like it couldn't have been 1,400 years ago. Like, what if? Is that like... He's like... Well, it's like it doesn't really matter. That's not the point. I'm like, okay. Yeah.
Maybe.
That's how Musa parted the sea, the tide. The
Yeah, that's exactly.
That'd be interesting for us.
Right. And that, right?
That'd be interesting.
The delay
all turn out
effect.
to be related.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I was from a family,
So yeah, but the key point being raised is that we're looking for that as the miracle that's a proof And why not just look at all these trees?
Yeah.
Or even, each of us said, we even talk about consciousness. How do you explain consciousness? So, so the point being that, okay, what is Ibrahim alayhi salam speaking about? He's speaking about something that's right in front of you, right before your eyes. And to turn away from it is to literally be fooling yourself. As we had the previous ayah that we saw a couple hours ago was, people say, why doesn't the sign come to us? And then it says, this is what the fools say. Or, like those people who have no knowledge say, why doesn't the sign come to us?
Was that in this class that you said that the reason why there's
the
no
classes
sign
might
for
take this.
us, the reason why there's no sign for us is because everyone who's had his time turned away? Was that in this class?
I don't remember.
Like this series of classes?
Maybe, but I don't recall saying that.
Oh, you're back down again. Maybe
So-
at the end
Before I
we
get
bounce
along.
it.
So to give you an idea of how I feel your pain, like, so my parents were hardcore about attending like my events when I get awards and stuff, but they were hardcore about other things, about being parents about it. So there was this one event where they're giving some award back in high school, and I was standing all the way in the back of this giant room. My mother was sitting in the front, right? And so for some reason they didn't call my name. That's because I forgot to put my name on the list of the people who are going to receive the award or the award. And then they asked, okay, is there anyone whose name we don't call? And in the whole room, in front of this whole room, there's hundreds of people there. My mother turns back and says, Omar!
That's
The
my
funny part is
card.
everybody already knew my mom, so it didn't really matter.
Did you get your award?
Oh yeah, I got it, yeah.
That's what all that
Because
matters.
of her, you got it. Either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have gotten two.
Yeah.
So I feel your pain, man. So, and then what does it say? وَلَقَدْ اسْتَفَيْنَاهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا. We have chosen him. Istafayna, same word that Mustafa comes from, one of the titles of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. We have chosen him in dunya. What's going on?
No, there's another car out there.
Somebody going backwards?
Yeah.
Is it like a neighbor?
There's a flashing car.
What color is it?
It's on the other
Not
side.
yours, it's on the
Audi.
neighbor's
On
driveway.
the other.
I
I can see it.
There we
One of those 18 million cars. We
There's
pull
a
up.
lot of cars out
There's all those cars, and there's like,
Somebody died or
Whoa, what's going on? I'm
No,
like,
they had a party.
I told Emily they're all here for class. She's like, whoa.
Well, I came home and I'm like, who's here?
something?
I got scared for a second.
We thought class was canceled. You guys were having a party or something. There's
Yeah.
like a sign
And
on
we
the
didn't,
door.
and we didn't get invited.
So we're like, oh, okay. And then we look and says like, please come in. And I was like, oh.
It's a Sakina.
It's a sign.
So, Ibrahim alayhi salam is chosen in dunya. And I think this is also fascinating because think about the status that even today Ibrahim alayhi salam has. He has a status of this very high esteem all across the religious traditions, right? You don't hear too many people making Abraham jokes.
No.
Peace be upon him. You'll hear Jesus jokes, obviously jokes about the Prophet, peace be upon him. But you don't hear too many people making jokes about Ibrahim alayhi salam. Sometimes it happens, but you don't hear it too much, which I think is very, very fascinating. وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ لَمِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And in the hereafter he will be among the salih, the righteous. And we spoke about this term, right? If we go really briefly back to Surah 4, I think it's ayah 70 or ayah 69. Ayah 69. وَمَنْ يُطِيعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ. So whoever obeys Allah and the Messenger, they are the ones that have the favors of Allah, the favor of Allah upon them, or Allah has favored them. And then we have four groups: An-Nabiyyin, was-Siddiqeen, was-Shuhada, was-Salihin. And the way that we define this basically is that of the people, if you're on the straight path, you'll wind up being one of these four people, at least one of these four people. Nabiyyin is already taken. Ibrahim alayhi salam is one of those. Siddiqeen was what? A person who recognizes truth when they see it. In other language, your thinking is so clear, your understanding of reality is clear, right? And you see truth, you recognize it. Which means you also recognize falsehood when you see it. وَالشُّهَدَاء. So the martyrs, the witnesses, you are living Islam, you're living obedience to Allah Ta'ala with your life. You're walking the walk. Salihin, you're a person of upright character that has such character that it compels people around you to have good character. So, and then it says at the end of the ayah, these are the best companions, right? So if I want to be like these people, one very strong way is to put myself in the company of these people. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, among his many honors is that he is Salihin. Meaning, we're going to see later on, he is essentially an ummah of his own. And he influences the people around him. So,
How big was Ibrahim alayhi salam's ummah at the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam?
it's him, basically.
Just him, right? That's what I thought.
Meaning his whole life he's just going around doing da'wah all over the place. Like he's said to have gone all the way across East Asia in terms of doing
But when you
da'wah.
say Salihin, it influenced the people around him, it didn't really influence many people.
Meaning, I think he probably did influence many people, but the stories we have
Yeah.
are basically the people who rejected him. Yeah. So essentially, what we're saying is that this is the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He is chosen in dunya and in akhirah. He is of upright character. And then what is at the center, another additional point of the millah of Ibrahim, ayah 131. When qala lahu rabbuhu aslim, when his nourisher said to him to surrender, what did he say? Qala aslamtu li rabbil alamin. So I surrender to the Rabb of all the worlds. Which again comes down to what? Obedience. This is at the heart of the millah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And we're back in Surah Al-Baqarah. What else is part of the millah of Ibrahim? The way he was a parent. وَوَصَّى بِهَا Ibrahim. So like essentially, wassa is it's kind of like what you're handing off, right? Like in terms of wasiyah. Ibrahim Nabihi, Banihi, to his children. Wa Yaqub wa Bani Ya Baniya. Really messing around today. إن الله اصطفى لكم الدين فلا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. So he's saying to his sons and by extension to grandchildren and beyond, O my sons, Allah has chosen for you this, and the word deen is not here, has chosen this for you, and do not die except in this way, except in surrender to Allah Ta'ala.
Wait, so it says,
Oh yeah, it says
Well-
deen right there, yeah.
well, what's up, biha?
Yeah.
What's biha referring to?
So with it, with him, with them.
Huh?
Ibrahim.
It's collective, like the Wasabiha refers as a collective to the children.
My nose is
Like,
bleeding.
grammatically, I think it's a sort of singular female, feminine applied to a group.
Seems like it. Yeah, I'd have to look at it. If you can go to corpus, see what corpus says.
No, but he's saying enjoined. I mean, but
Yeah.
are they saying Islam? I mean, the Islamed part, is that
Yeah.
what it's referring to, biha?
That's what I'm understanding.
Okay.
Or with this command.
Okay.
Ibrahimu tahu to banihi, to his sons.
Okay.
So Allah Ta'ala chose Ibrahim alayhi salam and he chose
And his
his
sons.
deen. And so do not die except as Muslim. So what does it mean, do not die except as Muslim? And do not live except as Muslim, right? And you're always ready for your death. So always live as Muslim. And you don't take
Talking
any
to
Sorry?
Yaqub, right?
So he's saying it to his sons and
His
to
son.
to Yaqub. So it's Ibrahim, son of Ibrahim is Ishaq.
Uh-huh.
Second son of Ishaq is Yaqub.
Wait, is that right? Or is it that he said it and Yaqub said it to their children?
Well, Yaqubu would say Yaqub said it. You're right.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
you're
so
correct.
it's he said it, and then Yaqub also
Said it.
continuing on the same tradition said
you're
it
correct.
to the children.
Yeah, thank you.
This is what you said.
They're so loud.
Okay.
I like that they're having fun, but they're very loud. I know, right?
So continuing with Yaqub, Am kuntum shuhada. That part will come to in a moment. But what did Yaqub al-Mautu. So when death approached Yaqub, and he said, Libanihi, so he said to his sons, what ma ta'buduna min ba'di? So what are you going to worship after me? Qala, they said, na'budu ilahaka wa ilaha abaika Ibrahima wa Ismaila wa Ishaqa ilahan wahid. So we are going to worship your God and the God of your father Ibrahim and Ismail and Ishaq. And the one God, or one God, وَنَحْنُ لَهُ مُسْلِمُونَ, and we are to him Muslims.
Now, sorry, I'm still
Yeah, check it out.
on 132.
Yeah.
Would it be proper to say that because it's saying Ibrahim, Yaqub, their sons, meaning their lineage kind of too, and this extends to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as the lineage of Ibrahim?
I think
Is
that's
this-
built into the overall conversation that we'll see in future ayahs, but here it seems like it's specifically talking about them talking to their sons.
Talking to their sons.
I mean, as explained in the next ayah.
So we're not getting to that point yet, as
I
of
think
now?
so, no. Yeah, I think it's not wrong to read that in here, but in terms of what the text is saying, because 133 says, okay, were you there when Yaqub, when death is approaching him, he asked his sons, what are you going to worship after me? Right. So it's like 133 is a tafsir of 132. So they said, we are going to worship your God, God of your fathers, Ibrahim, Ismail, Ishaq. We are Muslims to him. Now this is interesting, because who are the sons of Yaqub? Those 12 sons.
Yusuf.
Sorry?
Yusuf, always.
Yes, he's one of them, yeah. Yusuf.
And
Binyamin.
Ibrahim.
Which Ibrahim are we talking about? Binyamin.
Yaqub's sons.
Binyamin.
Ismail, Ibrahim, Ismail, Yaqub.
Oh no, sorry, Benjamin.
Yeah, Binyamin, yeah. Okay. So, the first part of this ayah, were you witnesses when death approached him? Why is that important to mention? Thinking of the context of when these ayahs are being revealed. Because what is essentially being said here? It's being said to the Jews of Medina. Okay. These are prophets of Islam. Were you there to witness what they said? That's what we're saying?
And is this in rebuttal to like
The
their
claim that they're
narrative?
Jewish prophets.
So it's essentially trying to.
The rebuttal will be much more direct when we go ahead. Maybe show the next way I should just say.
I have a question. For the Jewish prophets, there were more than one, right? Was there like an official seal since Muhammad Sallallahu was the
That's a
seal
good
of
question.
prophets?
I'd have to ask some rabbis in there. I'd probably have to ask some older rabbis, because the missing younger rabbis probably wouldn't know.
So it's Quran is trying to say that the scholarly Jews of Medina were claiming this as exclusive to their tradition.
Yeah.
And it's saying that no, that's wrong of you to do so.
Yeah,
Is that-
because even all these previous prophets, they were all Muslim. The issue was not lineage, the issue was belief and action.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Which is a heavy-duty claim. I mean, Allah doesn't make this, obviously he's speaking the truth, but the point being that, we also made the point last time that this is also a criticism on the Quraysh, because the Quraysh held the lineage is a huge point too, tracing their lineage back to Ibrahim alayhi salam. And what is essentially being said, what we'll see in 134, this is a nation that has passed on, they will have what they earn, and you will have what you earn. You will not be asked about what they did. Right? So your lineage can help you potentially in dunya, can't help you at all in your akhirah. Which goes back to our point about being a sayyid or a sharif and all those things. Yeah. So again, this is for us. We already understand this. We're taught this, since we're age 0. But as a criticism of other traditions, especially at the time of the Prophet, peace upon him, it's going on the attack against the 2 big traditions: the tribal system, and the Jewish community at the time. وَلَا تَسْأَلُونَ عَمَّا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. You will not be asked about what they used to do. So it's not even going to come up. Right? Your akhirah is all you. They've already come and gone.
But like, could you be more predisposed to being religious if like you had more righteous forefathers?
I'd say, of course, but you can also be the opposite, right? So here we have Ibrahim alayhi salam, who has 2 sons who are prophets. His grandson is a prophet. I don't know how many years later. Great grandson is a prophet. I don't know how many generations later. Muhammad, Musa, peace be upon him. So at least you have Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ismail, Ishaq, Yaqub, Yusuf. He has 4 prophets in his lineage. On the other hand, you have Nuh alayhi salam, who has his son who basically rejects him, right? And so the point is, I would say, yeah, we would think so, but any child can go in a different direction too. There is an argument that's made that the son of Nuh may have not been his biological son, but I don't think it's easy to see in the text. Yes, sir.
Hasn't his wife had the son before she married?
Something else. Because in the language is like, it's not your son, but I think it's how much he's lost his sonship because he's rejected. But I mean, I think it's fair to say that, all right, if you are raising your child in an Islamically healthy, wholesome environment, chances are that that's more likely that son is going to be, somewhat upright, as opposed to raising your child in chaos and anarchy and everything, right?
Well, that's actually one of the nice things about the ayahs, going back to the dua, that, Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka, this is a service that they're doing with the family. It's a dua that you do as a family.
Yeah, nice.
Then the next part is that it actually tells you that Ibrahim passes this tradition off to his children. Yaqub passes, it's actually a very long exposition on the connection between parents and children and what is expected of us as parents.
Yeah.
Taking from the lessons of Ibrahim alayhi salam.
Very nice.
Huh? I'm gonna get mice.
It's just randomly moving.
It is.
It's not remote control.
Freaked out for a second.
It's like, wow, these mice are pink and
Alright. They're bold.
mine's a totally inappropriate uncle joke, but I won't mention it right now. I'll let you just wonder about it. Anyway, that's what I want to do. There's a big camera and a feed, a Wi-Fi feed that goes to the NSA. Yeah.
To the FBI.
Yeah.
Don't say it because we don't know.
Sorry?
I should think we don't know.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. So now bringing this in terms of the perspective of Dawah, Ayah 135. وَقَالُوا كُونَا هُدًى كُونُوا هُدًى أَوْ نَصَارَى. So they say be Jews or Christians. تَهْتَدُوا. Then you will be guided. قُلْ بَلْ, which is essentially no, or rather, مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. So what is the millah of Ibrahim? Another definition of the millah of Ibrahim, to be hanif, to be upright, which goes hand in hand with being saleh. And he was not one of the mushriks.
قالوا.
It's actually a direct, it's almost saying that, in a way, what you're doing is, it's like a direct rebuttal to the Jews or Christians saying, what you're doing is shirk, and he wasn't a mushrik.
Sure sounds like it, yeah.
Wait, who is it saying that قالوا? Who's
So they say.
قال or they? So
Yeah.
okay.
So the whole discourse up to this point is saying what? Ibrahim alayhi salam is a Muslim,
Yeah.
right? And if they're saying, okay, you should be Jewish or Christian, What are we saying? We're following the way of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So we're taking him away. And what is his millah? To be upright, right? Not to be mushrik. Yeah. Meaning, I mean, Mohi, taking your point further, it's by saying that he's upright, it's effectively saying that their traditions are not upright, their traditions are corrupt.
So if I said like, oh, I follow the religion of Abraham, like, it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, if that means then you stop praying with Muslims, then that's a problem. But, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it could also. I mean, is it saying that whereas what they're saying, they're choosing an identity
Yes.
of.
If you're part of this membership.
Yeah, they're saying
then
the
your
focus is
salvation-
on identity with these people.
Yeah.
You know,
Group membership.
Hudan or Nasara, Jews or Christians, and we're saying we're following the path of Abraham, meaning it's really the belief system that we're looking at, not the
belief in the
identity.
action, yeah, not the membership. Meaning, being Muslim, does that guarantee me paradise? At least not directly, right?
There's the inclusion as a part of a group, sort of entitlement, I guess.
That's what I'm saying, directly do I go to paradise? No, not necessarily. I hope so.
I thought you meant directly.
Yeah.
Hanif, can it also mean sincere?
Yeah, it is. You had the good point from Abdul Nasser's lecture. You want to share that?
Well, Hunafa or Hanafa, the term is describing a person who is okay. So their feet are pigeon-toed, right?
What happened to your toe?
I bruised it. The blood spot.
It's
under
not-
the nail.
It's not like
It's not pain. No.
It's not nail
But
polish?
but like when you're pigeon-toed, it's pointing to the center. So it's saying you're centered. So the Hunafa are the centered people. It's describing this is the tradition of Abraham, alayhi salam. Is the center, the Hunafa. And that's the lineage of the Prophet, peace be upon him. So Ali ibn Abi Talib, his grandfather, right? His father, grandfather, and their lineage were of the Hunafa. So they were never of the Mushrikeen.
Okay, 136. Ulu, and say, so say further. So one is, the middle of Ibrahim is what? Is to be a Hanifa. It's not to be mushrik. Ulu amanna billahi. So more on what is the middle of Ibrahim. Believe in Allah. Wama unzila ilayna, and what he has revealed to us. Wama unzila ila Ibrahima wa Ismaila wa Ishaqa wa Yaquba wa al-asbat. So what he has revealed to Ibrahim, Ismail, Ishaq, Yaqub, and how did you translate asbat? Tribes or something?
Descendants.
Descendants, okay, yeah, I think that might be better. That's a word I'm not familiar with very much. وَمَا أُوتِيَ Musa wa Isa, and so what he gave to Moses and Jesus. وَمَا أُوتِيَ نَبِيُّونَ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ, so what he gave to the prophets, what was given to the prophets, yeah, Uti is actually passive form. What was given to Moses and Jesus, and what was given to the prophets from their nourisher, لَا نُفَرِّقُ بَيْنَ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ. So Amna and Nilofer can't answer this. What does this mean when it says we make no distinction between any of them, between any of the prophets? Because it seems like we very clearly do, right? We speak of Muhammad as the greatest prophet, and all these other differences.
They were all given the same message?
They're all of the same deen. Yeah. Did you guys? Amna, did you?
I did not tell her.
Yeah, that was in class this morning. But anyway, so وَنَحْنُ لَهُ مُسْلِمُونَ, and we are Muslims in submission to him. What's the difference between the word Nabiyyin and Anbiya? This is a small Arabic point. Like, it's the same difference between Kafirun and Kuffar.
One is a broken plural.
So one is essentially the standard plural, meaning multiple. Nabiyyun, Kafirun is meaning plural prophets, plural kafirs. Anbiya, Kuffar, is essentially saying abundant. That's what Anbiya means. And Kuffar means like abundant kafirs. Yeah. So having said that, if they believe the same as what you believe, فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا, and they are guided, or then they are guided. وَإِنْ تَوَلَّوْا, so if they turn away, فَإِنَّمَا هُمْ fi shiqaq, then they are in dissension. Shiqaq is actually like, imagine like you have a crevice that forms in between.
What ayah are you?
37. فَسَيَكْفِيكَهُمُ اللَّهُ, and Allah will be sufficient for you. Allah is kafi, like we say in Urdu, right? Allah kafi, Allah shafi, Allah shafi, Allah kafi. Yeah, those words come from Arabic. فَسَيَكْفِيكَهُم. This is of future tense. وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ, and He is listener knower. Meaning, if they are involved in some sort of deceit or planning against you, Allah Ta'ala is sufficient for you. Right? Here it is. Here is the millah of Ibrahim. All the prophets are prophets of Islam. If people are turning away from that, you rely on Allah Ta'ala. صبغة الله ومن أحسن من الله صبغة وَنَحْنُ لَهُ عَابِدُونَ. Sibghat Allah. What do your translations say?
Hue is one that I've heard very common.
Yeah.
Color,
Yeah, like coloring. Allah is the one who colors.
shade.
You have anything else?
Baptism.
Baptism, yeah. There's theories behind this choice of words, and one of the theories is that there was a type of baptism that was taking place where you put babies in saffron water to baptize them. And the response to that is that Allah Ta'ala is the one who gives us color. And so what is the color here? Nur. Or the color of Iman.
Could it be like the color of like light?
Which means what?
Like, you know, if you're dead, you have a different color. I assume.
What coloring do you have?
I don't know. Don't you like gray and dead? I don't know how that I don't know.
Oh, you want the color of being alive?
Yeah, like yeah.
Possibly.
Pink. I don't know.
But I mean, the idea that's taken from here is that even that your iman is not coming from these external rituals. Your iman is actually coming from Allah Ta'ala. Right.
I have a question about like the ayah 137. When is it?
Let us take a look.
Just right when he says ma amantum, so like that's you all what you all used to or you all believed.
Yeah.
Right.
Literally be past tense. Yeah.
So like would that be including like all of the prophets alayhi salam, like Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ismail, because it's just mentioning them, right?
I would understand this to mean this is at the time of the prophet. This is the prophet and the Sahaba.
Oh, okay.
Right. And then by extension, I would understand this to mean the Muslims.
Okay.
That when you are engaging specifically Jews and Christians, right?
Okay.
Or those who are claiming to be Jews and Christians, and if they believe what you believe. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So Sibghat Allah, one point that's taken from here is basically this idea that babies used to get baptized and it gave a certain color, and the response here is that the actual color of Iman, the color of Nur, comes from the Prophet, from Allah Ta'ala. And who is better than coloring than Allah Ta'ala? And so how do we get that? وَنَحْنُ لَهُ عَابِدُونَ. We are worshippers of Him. So what is the pathway to Nur? And Nur, on top of Nur, it's Ibadah. Again, we are going to take this probably as common sense, but if you look at much Islamic activism in America at this time, in Chicago at this time, much of it is focused on things other than Ibadah. Much of it is focused on things like promotion, protection of a so-called Islamic identity. Right? Much of the Islamic activist work, much of the dollars that are spent on Islamic type work is spent, I'm suggesting, much more on Islamic identity as opposed to Ibadah. Not saying the Islamic identity thing is a bad thing. I'm a beneficiary of that work, but it's the core is Ibadah.